What does it take to build a strong culture?
Welcome to Fordify Live with your host, Saeks.
Well, you're in for a treat today because my guest today is Anton Gunn. And Anton is a leadership and culture expert. And, I know with my companies, I've had 17 different companies. One of the most challenging thing I've had is how to attract, how to engage, how to retain, and how to inspire them for accountability. So for those of you listening, we are live right now on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and a few other places. But more importantly, I'm not even concerned about how many listeners there are. I'm going to use this as my own personal coaching session because this is something that I've struggled with in all of my companies. So Anton, welcome to Fordify Live.
Ford, thank you for having me. So excited about being here and happy to have this great conversation.
So, I know that when we talked, we met, we're on the speaking circuit together. We're both keynote speakers. We go into organizations and associations and we help their teams with various challenges. But when I met you and got to know you, you've kind of got some history here with Obama and what you've done there. So kind of share with that our listeners, how did you even become an advisor and do the things that you did?
Yeah. So the long story short is how I got there is sheer focus and discipline and commitment to trying to be better and trying to have an impact. I'll tell you like this. I bluffed my way into a meeting with Barack Obama and convinced him that if he wanted to be president, he needed to hire me. And he not only believed me, he gave me the opportunity to prove my leadership skills inside of his campaign organization. And then that ultimately ended me up working in his administration for about 3.5 years on his number one most important domestic agenda, and that was healthcare reform. And so literally it's about focus around deciding what you want, what's important to you, and but most importantly, identifying what's important to the other person and then helping them to solve a problem that they have. And the problem that he had was that he wanted to be president and nobody could pronounce his name. He was 30 points down to Hillary Clinton, and he was a skinny guy from Illinois that most people didn't know. And I got to him at that time and literally say, I can help you to solve that problem in my state of South Carolina if you give me an opportunity. And he gave me an opportunity and it began to snowball from there. And I'm just grateful for the experiences.
Well, I think, what you showed is a strong belief in persistence and the will to do it, because a lot of people might not have ever pursued that. And I know that you played in college football and you went from football to politics. Was that how you, what was that like?
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't envision that. Like when I decided to come to the University of South Carolina to play football for the Gamecocks, the only thing I wanted to do was go to the NFL. But it was very quickly revealed to me that the SEC is the highest level of football. And you not only got to be good, you got to be great, and you got to be bigger, faster, stronger than everybody else. And that wasn't me. I was more happy about the opportunity and about the experience, but I knew that pro football wasn't me. And so forward, I really wanted to be a high school history teacher. That was my goal, is when I finished college, I'm going to be a teacher. And I never ended up teaching. I ended up just having a series of unfortunate mistakes, interviewing for 40 jobs and never getting hired. I was trying to get out of my own way. But what happened is that I had a burning passion inside of me for doing my part to make the world a better place. I've always been like a community focused guy in helping people to solve problems. And so my first job was in the nonprofit advocacy sector where I worked on healthcare issues. And so football gave me the proving ground to know what the foundation of a great leader is. And it served me well in my community work. Number one is don't worry about getting the credit. See, I played offensive line in college. And when you're an offensive lineman, you get no credit. Matter of fact, nobody hears your name unless you make a mistake. And so as an offensive lineman, if you don't make mistakes, you're never going to get credit. But your job is to do your part to open up spaces and holes so that the quarterback and the receivers and the running backs, they get all of the glory. So I learned a valuable lesson in football. The second lesson I learned in football is that it's always about the team. It's not about you. It's always about some bigger vision and mission or goal. And so when I moved into my career of doing community work and then later in politics, that it was always about me putting myself in a position to help others to be more successful in their lives, number one. And number two, that there's always a bigger picture and a bigger goal. So I kept that through line through everything that I did. And it became the cornerstone of my number one value, which is service. serve other people first before you try to lead them. And I think so many leaders forget that part of the job, is your job is to serve first and to lead second.
Well, I think that's so true. And when you look at organizations today, and you're famous for knowing about it and talking about it, and it certainly comes up in my events, even though I've specialized in business growth. Culture is always part of the business growth, right? Because you've got leadership and operations, marketing and sales, and the customer experience, and then happy team, happy bank account, happy client, right? So it's how do you do that? And then there's this whole term that got thrown around in the last couple of years about quiet quitting. It's like, does the media need to give another reason to have people coin a name for something? I think quiet quitting isn't anything new. I mean, there's always been people that weren't motivated. I mean, the way I look at it is you can take an intrinsically motivated person, give them bad systems and even a bad culture, and they're probably going to succeed. But you can give a person who's not intrinsically motivated the best culture in the world, and they won't do it. So it's like putting a square peg in a round hole. But what is your take on the challenges that organizations are facing with their staffs that are maybe just phoning in their work and not really rising to the occasion? Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So this is like literally the most important conversation we can have. I mean, if you think back to 2021, between 2021 and today, more than 90 million Americans have quit a job, in the last 2 years. Not only that, I read something in Forbes that said 774 CEOs quit a job in 2022 in the first 6 months. So you got CEOs who are burnt out, frustrated, staff who are feeling the same thing. And again, quiet quitting has been going on for like 2 generations. If you think about the context of people mailing it in at work every day, marginal performers are just doing the bare minimum to keep their job, it really has been a phenomenon for a long time. And I'll just tell you the punchline of what we have to do to solve this problem. It's what I lead with in every one of my keynote. It's the money slide. If you take away these things, you don't need to focus on anything else but these 3 things. And that is, every employee, when they show up to a job, they're asking 3 questions of their supervisor and the CEO every day, the same 3 questions. And let me be clear, every one of your customers is asking the same 3 questions. Question number 1 is, do you care about me? Question number 2 is, will you help me to be successful? And question number 3 is, can I trust you? And the main point is that we, in our marketing and our sales copy and our talks and everything that we say to our employees, we answer yes to those 3 questions. I care about you. I'm here to help you to be successful, and you can trust me. But nobody wants to hear yes to those 3 questions. Instead, they want to see yes in your actions every single day. Do you care about me? Will you help me? And can I trust you? And let me be real clear about this. The last question, the trust question, will never get answered unless you repeatedly, over and over and over again, answer the first 2 questions. People want to be in an organization where they feel like the people that I work with and work for care about me as an individual. Why did I choose to work at this job? Do you even know the answer to that question? Number 2, do you know what I'm motivated by? Is it money that motivates me? Is it a team that motivates me? Or is it the mission of your business and what we're doing in the marketplace? See, everybody's motivated differently. But the problem is most supervisors and leaders and people in the leadership role don't know the individual motivations of their team. And so you might disincentivize somebody by doubling down and saying, hey, I'm giving you a bonus this year. And they may be working for you because they don't need extra money. They're working for you because they want to be a part of a team. And so you've not met their needs. So the second question is, can you help me? And will you help me? And the main point is this: people, to be successful at work, they need the tools, they need the information, and they need the resources so they can execute. And sometimes we give them the tools, sometimes we give them the information, but they don't have all of the resources to execute. And I've seen plenty of people say, you know what, I need 5 people on my team to do this job. But because you've only given me 3, then I'm going to do the bare minimum because all I got is 3. I'm not going to go above and beyond. So you got to get to that second question. And then the third question of trust is earned over time. And we love to believe and assume that people immediately trust us because we said the right things and we showed up. But I'm here to tell you that it only takes a second to break that trust, and it may take a lifetime to build it back. So if you understand the foundation, focus on showing the people that you lead, that you care about them, that you're willing to help them to be successful. And then over time, they will trust you and they will go to war for you. And I will tell you that as a person who's built teams as small as 4 and led organizations as large as 80,000, this 3-question formula has never failed me in 25 years of leadership in the public sector, in the private sector, and with the clients that I work. You got to answer those 3 questions.
Well, I've had hundreds of guests on my show. I've had well-known leadership experts. People can look at the podcast and they can see all the different guests I've had. But that, I think, is the first time, and I literally have goosebumps. I think it's the first time, and maybe, they say when the student's ready, the teacher appears. Maybe it's just where it is right now during this broadcast. But that was the first time that it was articulated in such a way that's relatable and understandable at anybody anywhere in the organization. And as a marketing person, when I'm selling something, or to me, it's always about communication. And the more clearly you can communicate, and the more clearly you can articulate that you understand what the challenges the person's having, the more you can have a sale. So I just want to say, from a marketing standpoint, amazing. But more importantly, for this topic, what a great way. Now, if you're listening to this on the Business Growth Show podcast and you joined late, this is Anton Gunn. You can find him at AntonGunn.com. He's the CEO and a leadership consultant, helping organizations for over a decade now, in all different roles. So let's continue this conversation. I know you wrote this book. Tell me about this book you have called Just Lead.
Yeah, so that's a great place to go. So Just Lead was really it's my 3rd book, and it's probably my shortest, most succinct and efficient book that I ever made. I've tried to reduce my carbon footprint. So it's a really small, simple book that you can get through probably in about a day. I would say it'd take you no more than a day. Now, the reason why I wrote this book is because when I come off a stage after a keynote, I'm usually in a large ballroom. Lots of people meet me at the back of the room, and they're always asking deeper questions around everything that I share from the stage. So I'll talk about those 3 questions, and they'll say, Anton, I'm struggling with this on my team. Like, diversity is an issue on my team. I'm struggling to break down barriers between, this group of employees and this group of employees. I'm struggling with my retention. And I really want to, dive deeper into this thing that you call world-class workplace culture. How do I do that? I'm frustrated by it. And I say to them, just lead. And when they ask, well, what do you mean just lead? I said, listen, I'm going to give you 44 actions that will break down barriers, boost your retention, and show you how to build a world-class culture. And it kind of goes back to where we started with those 3 questions. Let me break the first one down inside the book, and I'll give you a framework for it. So the point is, if I say to you, the people on your team are asking the question, do you care about me? So my next question to you is, do you know enough about them to care about them? See, that's where so many leaders fail, is that I think I care about you, but I don't even really know who you are. I don't know where you went to high school. I don't know what you did before you came here. I don't know your favorite color, your favorite candy bar, or your favorite football team. So for instance, as a University of South Carolina graduate, I'm a Gamecock through and through. Our colors are garnet and black. But if you want to show me that you don't care about me, bring me anything that's the color of orange. I despise orange. I don't like orange. So don't bring me oranges. Don't bring me an orange jacket. Don't bring me an orange hat. And so imagine if your company is having a holiday event and you decide to buy everybody orange Yeti cups. Well, I'm going to say he doesn't even care about me because he knows that he doesn't know that I went to the University of South Carolina, and he's giving me stuff that's orange that I don't like. So you got to know your team. And so in that book, at the very, very beginning, I talk about the 9 reasons why people quit a job. And money is one of them, but it's not even the top one on the list. People leave places where they don't feel cared about and where they feel unknown, where they feel invisible, where they don't feel valued because you don't know who I am and what I can contribute to the team. So the book really breaks down simply 44 actions. This is an action-based book, which means you could pick it up today, turn to any page in the book, and find 2 actions that you can use tomorrow to build deeper connections with your team and help them to feel more committed to the organization and to show them that you care about them, that you're helping them to be successful, and that you can trust them. And I think the overarching point that in this world of where we start talking about diversity of teams and diversity and equity and inclusion, so many people are frustrated by this conversation because they don't have action-based things that they can do that will safely move them down the field. So this book is the personification of an action-based plan to build diverse, high-performing teams in a world-class workplace culture and become the leader that everybody in your organization will admire in perpetuity. That's my belief, and that's the focus, and that's what I put together.
Well, I tell you what, this is going to be a top-rated episode. Nothing against my other featured guests. I'm just saying I like it when a guest comes on and really shares tangible, actionable insights in such a way. And I agree. I mean, books, having a book that you can read in a day or that you can just go to any chapter to solve it becomes a prime resource, right? So that's like when I wrote Accelerate, wrong shoulder, that one. When I wrote Accelerate for franchising, someone said, "Oh, I'm reading your book this weekend." I'm like, you can go ahead and read it cover to cover, but it's really used as a guide so that if you're dealing with one thing, you can go to that challenge and do that. So I think that's amazing. So if an organization is struggling right now with high turnover or disruption, what can they do? Where do they start? I know they can get the book. I know they can follow Just Lead. Sure. Do they have team meetings? Do they do assessments? Once they understand that they have the problem and they get the basics, they understand the 3 questions. So now they do have a vision of what they should do. How do they introduce it to the team so the team starts accepting it? Because for me as a CEO of multiple companies, and I pay them and I'm like, can they do the work? I want to train them to standard, give them the opportunity, give them the vision, but create the culture. But that word culture gets thrown around so much. It's like, I bet if I had 100 executives to define culture and then I asked thousands of employees, you're going to get something different. So where do they start? Where does the CEO that recognizes that he needs to make some changes, even though he can get your book and he can learn those 3 things, how does he start to implement?
Yeah, so I would say, I'm going to always go back to the most important thing. You can't fix what's wrong until you know what's wrong. And so you may have high turnover as a challenge in your organization. You may see in one division, we have 25% turnover. Another division, we got 50% turnover. So you might think, yeah, we do got a turnover problem. But the question is, what is the difference in those divisions? Is it a leadership problem in that area? That could be the case. Or it could be a process problem in that space and people are frustrated by the process. So I always advise people to look at the data that you have and really analyze, listen, what are we looking at here? What's the difference between these areas? And once you get clear about what's wrong, you now have to evangelize everybody to what the problem is. And what do I mean evangelize? The problem is sometimes as leaders, we might know that something's broken and we want to move our team, but we think we can have isolated conversations with that one area that's a problem and not alert everybody else to what's really going on. But in reality is this, that when something is broken in your organization, the whisper network and the rumor mill has told the entire organization that that is a problem. So everybody knows it, but they're waiting on you as a leader to acknowledge the reality of what's wrong. So I always tell leaders the town hall meeting with your team, a full all staff meeting is the best place to have a conversation because transparency breeds trust. If they hear you say, this is what I know our problem is, and I am committed as a CEO, as a leader of this organization to solve this problem. And so what I like to do is now invite you to be a part of the process of me developing the solution. So here's some questions that I have CEOs ask in one-on-one meetings, but sometimes it's good to say it in the town hall. If you were me, what's one thing you would do to solve this problem? You literally crowdsource the solution from your team. If you were me, What's one thing you would do to solve the problem? And you're going to get a list of, if your team is 100 people, you're probably going to get a list of about 40 different things. But you're going to start to see immediately that the overwhelming majority of people are pointing out 2 broken flaws in the system or what they all see as a problem. And that becomes the work product of which you focus on trying to solve. Now, here's the end game. Is that when you work on to solve that problem and when you actually get a solution implemented, you got to bring everybody back together and let them know what you have done to solve the problem. because a lot of my clients that I go deep with in their organizations, they get these employee engagement survey results and they get all of the information back and they see all of the things that the employees complain about, and then they start working on them. But they work on them in the dark and work on them in secret, but they don't ever tell because the positive rumor mill doesn't spread to the whole organization. They're actually working on the problem. So it's up to you as a leader to bring everybody back together that says, here's what we identified as broken. Here's what we have done to implement to fix it. And we want to show you the results of where we are right now and let you know what we still have to do in the next phase. That level of transparency and engagement, not just from you as a CEO, but everybody that you've empowered to be a leader on your team, if they're all cascading that same kind of message, then people start to believe that he or she really cares about this organization and cares about what I raised as a problem, and they're actually doing something about it. And because they're working to do something about it, then I'm going to invest and do something about it. And that's how you build a culture that iterates on top of itself, that we're a problem-solving team who wants to execute and not afraid to talk about what's real and what's honest and what our biggest challenges are. That's the advice that I give people.
Well, I'm telling you what, this is just so solid, such great advice, so actionable. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you have an organization of one or, like you said, 80,000. It's actionable, and that's what I love to see. Because again, I'm real type A and practical. I want to know, like, what are my steps, right? I want to know how I can actually do this. Now, I also know that there's a connection to hip hop, but I mean, as a leadership and culture expert, what's this connection to hip hop, and kind of explore that and explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So if I had to break it down for it, I would say hip hop is who I am. Leadership is what I do. Now, when I say hip hop is who I am, I'm a 50-year-old man today as I'm talking to you, and 50 years of hip hop, we just celebrated that. And so my life started when hip hop started, and the music and the culture for me is the embodiment of what we should be trying to build in this world. And what do I mean by that? Hip hop is one of the most diverse musical art forms there are. I mean, if you think about the birth of it, it started in the Bronx, New York, in low-income, impoverished communities where people had pretty much nothing. They were left and believed that nothing was possible in the Bronx. But it was Black and Latino kids who took old, unused record players and other equipment from everybody else, put it together, and created an art form that they made in their own community. So they built their own culture in their own community. But how it got to a worldwide phenomenon is you had Jewish kids who loved hip hop culture, who took it to the downtown community, to their dad's record companies and their friends in business, and they began to monetize it a little bit. It became that. And then you had, the LGBT community who put the music in the clubs and they played it at the nightclubs. And so if you think about the tapestry of diversity, hip hop brought it all together. And that is the experience that I believe that if you want to build a great organization and great culture, then bring all diverse voices, different perspectives in, and let them do what they do best, all focus on a mission of peace, unity, love, and having fun. And that's what hip hop is. And that's who I am. When you get me, you're going to get peace, unity, love, and having fun. And it's been the through line to everything that I do. So if you ever brought me in as a keynote speaker to your event or your company, I'm telling you right now, you're going to have some peace, some unity, and we definitely going to have some fun. And you're going to hear some classic old school hip hop. That's the game.
Well, it's interesting. I grew up in the projects of North Minneapolis. I was an orphan and paid $17 a month for government housing. So I was the minority. I mean, as a white kid in a black, in the projects. So I grew up in Minnesota. I thought that was normal, right? I mean, and I spent my time as a rink rat at a skating rink. So hip hop was very strong in my life. People would think, old white guy, really? Yeah, but seriously, I was a DJ at the roller skate rink. It was called the Roller Gardens in North Minneapolis in St. Louis Park, and we'd have up to 2,000 people on a night. And that place was rocking. We'd have 75 police cars outside at the end of the night to make sure everybody got home safe. But it rocked. And so Play That Funky Music White Boy was my nickname, and we were doing it. So it's interesting to have that, but I didn't even realize that at the time, the cultural lessons I was learning, right? I mean, I grew up in it. So then when I moved and you start seeing the world and you start wondering, what is going on? And you start seeing the different things, and then years later, in 1995, I started managing Les Brown, who's, for those listeners out there, he's probably one of the best motivational speakers, a strong leader. And I traveled everywhere for him for 3 years, and he was married to Gladys Knight. So now here I am traveling with Les Brown and Gladys Knight, putting on these huge events. Of course, my fee was $5,000. His was $30,000. My fee's a little bit higher now, but back then it was that way. And it was interesting because even as a celebrity and as big as he got, you would see the culture issues and you'd see it. But I think that the key here, the takeaway, sorry, I had a little brain fart and excited about that, because hip hop was a big thing in my life. And I still listen to it. So that's what was it was just kind of funny. Now let's get back on and make sure that listeners don't forget. Now here's the deal. There's a book on Amazon. It's Just Lead, but you have to put Anton's name in it because it's a popular name. So Just Lead, 44 actions to break down barriers, boost your retention, and build a world-class paperback. So get it on Amazon at your favorite bookseller. And of course, now do you have the Audible book done yet? I don't see it.
Yeah, not done yet. That's on the first quarter of this year. My team and I getting it together. Like I'm a reader. And when I mean reader, I read about 60 books a year. I love turning pages. I got 4 libraries in my house. And so I always try to build in the context of me. But now I'm really understanding you got to put it to where the ghost can get it. And that's what my friend Joe Madison says. You got to get it down low where people want it. And so if people want an Audible, they'll be able to get it in the first quarter of the coming year.
Yeah. So just so I can help you out. Don't overthink it. Use your microphone you got right now. Read your chapters. Don't worry about reading it word for word. The big thing, we've published over 300 titles here. The best thing to do is just have a conversation with each chapter. It does not need to match. I mean, don't try to be articulate to the book. Just This is chapter 1. And then if you want to add something. And then when you're done, you can run it through. Adobe has, if you go to podcast.adobe.com, it can run it through the filter and it'll clean all the audio up, because Audible has some really strong standards. So the barrier to doing it, is less than you think. Just turn on your recorder. There's some basics you have to do in the beginning and the end. But if you have any questions on that, certainly let me know. So again, for the listeners here, we've been talking to Anton Gunn, AntonGunn.com. He's a leadership consultant and expert. And now I feel like a good friend and a colleague. And he shared some amazing tips. I think if I can read these properly on my notes here for leadership, because this is something I'm going to start implementing. I got to order your book because I don't have it yet, but I will do that. Do you care about me? So the questions as an organization, do you care about me? Can you help me be successful and help me grow? And can I trust you? And then not only were those 3 questions, but also a great way to implement and actually transform a culture from disruption to a positive transformation. Now, we go live, everybody, Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Central on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And of course, if you've got other questions, I hope you were putting comments below. If you like this episode, whatever platform you're on, like and subscribe and all that normal stuff. Everybody knows what to do. So as we wrap up the episode, what are some closing comments you'd have or action steps for our listeners?
Well, I'll tell your listeners this. The number one thing is no leader is perfect. And we all need to be on a growth journey every day. You're going to face challenges of business disruption, industry disruption, environmental disruption. All kinds of things are going to happen. And when they do happen, when things go wrong, don't go wrong with them. Instead, recognize that you can always do something to make it right. And it really starts with asking the question, what can I do today to make things better than they were tomorrow? And sometimes the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. And I tell leaders, don't be paralyzed by overanalyzing the problem. The problems might seem big, but if you just recognize there is something that you can do to make it right, you'll start to build the belief system of people around you that you're committed to making change, to making progress, to fighting through the adversity and solving through whatever the disruption may be. That's what your team needs to see from you. The second thing that I'll say is that transparency breeds trust. So as a leader, are you allowing your people to know who you are as a real person? What motivates you? what you care about, your background, your backstory. Like the things that you shared today helps people to connect you more deeply because they know that you're not afraid to be honest about your failures, your faults, and the dark times that you went through and who you now are, because every one of us wants to grow in that space. So that's what I would tell you close with. And I always close with the 3 questions. Do you care about me? Will you help me? And can I trust you? Answer them every single day with your actions, and you will become the leader that everyone will admire for the rest of your life.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to Fordify Live. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the Business Growth Show podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming fix. We air weekly at 11 a.m. Central Time. So until next week, keep pushing the boundaries and never stop growing.